Hello, everybody. I am Anisa Omar. You might remember me from last year's campaign with the Women's Foundation of Minnesota and Share the Mic Minnesota. I had the honor last year of speaking with Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and this year I have the absolute honor to speak with Senator Patricia Torres Ray. As you may already know from last year, I am Anisa Omar from Mankato, Minnesota. I am the first of my family to be born in Mankato. I come from a large immigrant household. My parents are from Somalia. And so I am just super ecstatic to have you here today, Senator. And I am so excited to learn more about your background. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for me.
Anisa, it's just a pleasure to be here. I am very grateful to the Women's Foundation of Minnesota and Share the Mic of Minnesota, who invited us to be here. So it's really wonderful. And to hear you from Mankato, one of the invitations that I get often is to go to Mankato because we have so many new faces, immigrant families that share your ethnic background and my ethnic background. So it's a beautiful community, and I'm excited to be interviewing with you today. So I was elected to the Minnesota Senate in 2006 and became the first Latina elected to the Minnesota Senate. So it was an excellent time, an opportunity to share this space with the first Hmong woman elected to the Minnesota Senate, who became my mentor, Senator Mimua. And we became very good friends, and then she left me. So you know how things go, but it has been really a wonderful opportunity to be here, to be a voice for so many communities that are really looking for representation here, and that oftentimes don't find people who look like them, who really cannot share their stories and reflect on our experiences. There are very few people of color in the Senate, Indigenous people in the Senate and the House. So our voices are very needed. I am a parent of two boys, 27 and 25 already. So it's, I came to this country about 34 years ago. I don't know when your parents came here, but like them, looking for opportunities and trying to learn how to speak this language and adapt and find a job. And so Minnesota has been a wonderful place for me. I have had wonderful opportunities. And today I am in the Minnesota Senate.
Yeah, it's so amazing to hear that. And to hear that you ran to represent individuals who look like you, and to be the first and break so many barriers and just lead the way is amazing. I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest struggle when you first launched your campaign? And then from that, since you've been in the House for about 16 years now, how has politics changed since the time you have been there?
So, my biggest struggle running for office was to be an outsider. In politics, people, especially when I ran 17 years ago, you had to kind of be in the circle of people, who had parents who were in politics, who were in office. The father was a mayor, the grandfather was. So I didn't come from those circles. I was very new to politics. And so having to tell my story and convince people that I had the ability to represent their voice, but I was an immigrant, that I knew a story that needed to be told here, and that I had an experience as a woman of color that related to the experience of other women of color. And in general, that I had been a student in the University of Minnesota. So telling my story and connecting my story, although I was a new person, in this community, was complicated, trying to get to everyone. Remember, we didn't have all of the social media outlets that we have now, so that you can put a Twitter and get it to thousands of people. So it was a complicated thing, but I do think that my story resonated with many people, and they were finally able to hear it and appreciate it and give me the opportunity to be their voice here. And so that has been really a struggle. It is a struggle for people of color and immigrants and Indigenous people, really, to find ourselves oftentimes here in places where we're the only ones in the table. You know, we are the only person of color in the table, having to really relate the story of so many people that are with us, behind us, with us doing this work, but they are not here. So tell me the second part of your question, because I remind me of the second part. Sometimes I go in my questions and then.
No, no, you're fine. It was such a beautiful response, and I resonated so much to what you stated. My second question to you was, how do you believe within the 10 years that you have been, within the 17 years, my apologies, that you have been serving in the Senate, how has politics changed for you?
You know, I am a little frustrated that we really have not had the impact that we're supposed to have internally. So I feel that the political fraction, the political distance that we see outside is even more prevalent inside. We have this political divide that is really reinforced by ideology, and that is influencing the work that we do here. So I am very concerned that people are less and less interested in working in a bipartisan way, in reaching out and working with other communities. You know, prior to the last 6-7 years, we were able to partner with others, even though they didn't, of course, serve in metropolitan area. They were in rural Minnesota. They wanted to partner with us. They wanted to work together. That's not happening. But what is happening that I think is very interesting is that the opposite is happening with young people like you, that you are really understanding the value and the power of working across communities, across gender, across generations, across geographic boundaries. And I see it in you. I see it in, you know, the young people that hang out with my kids. I see it in the young people that work for us, because the young people that work for us are about your age. You know, they are just college graduates that come over here and just are so excited to be part of this environment. And they are so interested in partnering, in you know, being that voice for people, everyone, LGBTQ people, Indigenous people. They know that it is their obligation, that they are part of the community that is, you know, bigger than themselves. And that when those schools, those communities, those healthcare systems work for one community, they need to work for everyone. And that is so clear to your generation. So I'm very inspired by that. And I see that change. I clearly see that, you know, this organizing and this beautiful energy that is diverse, that is inclusive, that is empowering, is very real outside of this place. So I can't wait until you decide that it's time for you to come inside, so that you bring all of that energy and that strength, you know, to transform this kind of outdated systems, that are structures that are hard to transform.
Definitely. And I currently also work at a school with a lot of young Somali students. And so seeing the hope and the way they advocate for themselves is just so beautiful at such a young age. And so I hope that individuals like you continue to kind of, you know, they can look up to you and harness that, like, I could be that one day, like you do for me. A question that I had for you is, you were the first immigrant Latina to serve in the Senate. And so how have you been able to use your background, being an immigrant, being a woman of color, to kind of help transform the policies that not only impact people of color, but also strongly impact immigrants because of your background?
Yeah, you know, I think that this is a very important question, and I am glad that you're asking that question, because oftentimes we hear the message, you know, we represent the entire state of Minnesota. You know, you don't need to be, you know, naming a specific ethnic communities or other communities, because we should represent everyone. But the reality is that communities of color and Indigenous communities, LGBTQ communities, face very different challenges in our society. And that oftentimes the people who are here have not really had that experience. They have not really walked in those shoes. Their parents haven't, their great-grandparents didn't. So they really don't have that personal lived experience that allows them to speak, about what is needed in those communities, what is needed by those individuals, and how more than what is needed, what are some of the solutions that we bring. To me, the most important thing that I've done is really to remember that each and every single day that I come here. So my office is often viewed as an office where you are welcome. And in fact, if you're not here, I'm going to call you because I feel like I don't have the perspectives of all the constituents that I represent. And I value that immensely. So I'm oftentimes calling people and say, okay, who's testifying in this committee? This is a bill that is going to impact directly, families that have young children. That's many of us. A housing policy that impact predominantly low-income family and renters. So I really stop and think about the constituencies that oftentimes don't have a voice here. And I think about, who's coming to testify? Do we have a person from the community who is coming to give us advice, to give us, some testimony? And to me, that is the most important contribution that I can make, because you are a voice, right? When you are at the university, you can tell about your experience, but your experience does not reflect the experience of all Black women in this country. You need to be able to really think about, who else needs to be here with me. So my bills are a reflection of that. Most of the bills that I have authored over my 16 years are really targeting or related to issues impacting communities of color and indigenous communities, related to education, healthcare, housing, environmental justice. So I tend to specialize in those areas, and therefore, I have the privilege to connect with people of color who work in those areas, and others, of people who value the presence of our communities in fields like energy or environment, which are, by the way, unfortunately, very few, because that's the truth, So I'm curious to ask you about, how do you think that we could do a better job of including communities that are more diverse in policy? I'm curious about your perspective as an outsider.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you that question. What can I do to do a better job?
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you do reach out and your office is so welcoming, like, hey, come testify, come like amplify your voice so that I can make policy surrounding the struggles that you're currently having and assist you with that. For me, I think the biggest thing is serving the individuals who are underserved, like our houseless folks that are living in encampments are being torn down, individuals who are having difficulties accessing food, healthcare. That's the biggest thing. And so I was the student body president at Minnesota State University, Mankato. And I also struggle with that as a leader. It's like, how do you make sure you are reaching out to the individuals who are most in need of your support, of your voice? And so I've honestly come to the realization, as you said, it's reaching out, extending that hand. Like, I'm here to serve you. Use me to help assist you in any way that you may need me. But I think right now, I'd say, I work at a school in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I'd say coming down to the high schoolers, start instilling in them that they have a voice at a young age, especially seeing leaders. We recently had Representative Ilhan Omar participate in our Black History Month virtual assembly. And when the students saw her, they're like, oh my gosh. And so I really think it's just coming down and talking to the next generation of leaders. And that starts at the elementary level, the high school level, and the college level. And I think from a young age, what they need to know is that their voice is needed, that their voice is important, and that they will be the change makers. And so we just need to continue to instill that in them, especially in a society that oftentimes doesn't view them in that manner. So seeing you, Senator, do that for the young individuals and other individuals that you're serving in your community is such a beautiful sight. And it's very, very hopeful for me that the next individual who hopefully will have your spot will be able to lead the way you have been doing so far.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so with that, that just kind of assisted me with the second question, because I also was serving as a leader in university, and you're doing it at a much bigger scale. And so what struggles, or what support do you have? You know, you're a leader in policy making, and especially advocating for underrepresented individuals. And so what does your support system look like? And it's like, how do you have the energy to keep going after you're facing all of these barriers? It's just very inspiring to me. So I would love to know and gain your insight.
So it's interesting that in politics, these circles of support become kind of a very organic circle that grows out of our desire to be working together on policies. And so my closest friends, when I ran for office, went like, oh, we're not very political. We don't know how to do this politics. We don't know how to do this organizing. And then there were a lot of people who were just like eager to, yeah, we are so happy that you're running for office, and we would love to support you because we would love to see more women of color, being elected and all of that. And I go like, oh, okay, well, I don't know these people, but they have become my closest friends, my closest allies, and continue to provide, that support, not only in terms of campaigning and all of the things that we do when we run for office, even economically, but also my source of strength. They are always there when I am facing an issue that is really challenging. They come and just be there with me and remind me that I am not alone. So, what I think has been very important for me is to be kind of very genuine and very transparent about my values and what I value in my work and what I would like to accomplish as an elected official. And then people really want to be close, when you find that friend. I don't know if this has happened to you, that when you express, that you really want to accomplish something, that you really have a vision for doing something. There are people that you didn't even know, and they go like, yeah, I want to do that with you. I really would like to do this in my college or in the school or change this. And then they become your best friends. That happens a lot in politics. And so I always tell people, don't be afraid to express exactly what you want to do why you're running for office and how you would like to see changes made. What are you passionate about? Because that brings people to you. And then people, really help you figure this out. They have great ideas. They have, the strength and the connections to people that you may not know. So that for me is what really keeps me going, especially in this very divided political environment that can be so complicated. And that's what sustains me and keeps me going too. So your second question about, what keeps you going? How do you find the strength to keep going? And I really think is finding those friends, right? That made that commitment to me in the first place, that they will be with me, that they value who I am and what I do. And then, when I think about doing something and I think, oh my God, here I am. This morning I was in an environment committee and I was thinking, this is such an uphill battle. They don't want to move this policy. And then I have all of these emails from organizations that are working on environmental policy, environmental justice. These are friends, and we have a common understanding of what we want to do for the state of Minnesota. And I thought, no, I'm coming and I'm speaking up and I'm saying what I have to say because this is our voice. This is our message, and they need to hear it. So that's what provides the strength for me really every day, that I know there are people out there who really are inspired by the work that we do, just like you do, is the work that you do in your college and how you connect with other people. People are inspired by that, and they want us to keep going, to get stronger every day, so that there are more of us doing this work and we have more friends.
Definitely, yes. And community is very, very important, especially being able to create change, or regardless of its policy or if it's just something in the community. It's just having individuals standing by you and assisting you is so powerful. With that, I would like to ask, since it is your final term in the Senate, what is the biggest lesson that you have learned serving this far, and what is the biggest lesson that you'll be taking with you?
The biggest and most painful lesson that I have learned in these 16 years is that it's very hard to move the needle to eliminate the disparities that exist in the state of Minnesota. I have this work really running for office. I got inspired by women of color, predominantly Black women and Indigenous women who have been doing work to end child poverty in this state. Many of them have passed away. So I was mentored by these women. And what I find is that they have been working for generations to do this work, to eliminate disparities in the state of Minnesota, and to eliminate policies that have created tremendous disadvantage, particular to African Americans and Native Americans, and today to new immigrants. And so I find today, after 16 years, that all of that rhetoric has not translated into practical policy to eliminate those disparities and build more equity. So I get very frustrated by that. I feel like for me, it has been 30 years of work, but for many families, for many activists, for many people of color in this state, it has been generations of work, and we have made little progress. So I'm very frustrated by that. What I believe needs to happen is that there is a need for women like you to really inspire others to come forward and to really find the strength that exists within our communities, the knowledge, the history, the connections that exist in our community to keep you going, because this is changing. It's going to change, and we are going to have an impact. You are a different generation, and you already are inspiring so many young women, and your children will. So yeah, things are changing for us. They're just not changing fast enough. And that is something that we really need to have a stronger voice in all of the circles that we're part of. And I hope, that this very exercise that we're doing, this invitation that we received from the Women's Foundation to have this conversation, is precisely connected to that, to the duty that we have as women to connect with one another, but also the opportunity that we have in front of us for those of us who have been in the trenches for so long, and those who really want to join us and be part of that and continue to make a difference. So what a great opportunity the Women's Foundation and the Share the Mic Minnesota are offering us today.
Yes, thank you so much. And before we close off, I have one final question for you. Since you're talking about younger individuals joining the fight, what advice would you have for young women of color like myself, or young immigrant women, as they are considering their place in policymaking and politics, wherever they feel their heart guides them? What advice would you have for us?
My advice is for you to step in and remember that you are ready to take on these big responsibilities as you are. Many people will tell you that you are not ready, that you don't have what it takes. And my advice is that you do take the responsibility, because you do have what it takes. There are some things that you're going to have to learn on the way, just like many of us. It is important that we step in and take this responsibility, assume that responsibility, even when we are a little hesitant or a little afraid. Women tend to assess themselves way too much. Am I ready? Do I have the education? Do I have the skill? Can I say this? Do I have the people around me? Do I have the resources? So by the time we're asking all of those questions about ourselves, a man just stepped in and took the job or took that place that belonged to you. So Stop doubting yourself. Step in, take the responsibility. You will learn what you need to learn and the skills that you need to learn along the way.
Thank you so, so much for those beautiful words. Thank you.
Do we have enough, you think?
Yes, I think we're good to go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here. Please be sure to follow the campaign by following the hashtag WFMN, Women's Foundation Minnesota, X times share the mic. Thank you.